Welcome everyone to the GovHack National Connections event. This evening, we're going to be talking about a few things around what is GovHack, what is open government data, how to GovHack, and the themes of 2021. We then have a few guest speakers who I'll get to shortly. So I am Jason Weigel, the operations lead for this year, as well as a director and chair of GovHack Australia Limited, the company that runs GovHack within Australia. I also have Olivia Lamb on the call, who is the competition lead, and she'll be going over how you can compete and where and what GovHack is all about a little bit later. Before I begin, I would, however, like us to pause to reflect on the fact that we reside on the lands of the world's oldest living civilization. I pay my respects to the Yagara people and the Turrbal people, the traditional custodians of the land where I am streaming from. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands where you are all watching from, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples participating in GovHack. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and their connection and cultures to the lands and waters of Australia. I would also like to thank our sponsors that we have that continue to make GovHack and a free event for all of our competitors. We have our lead international sponsor, Infosys, our international sponsors and partners, Confluent and Slack, our Australian national sponsors, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the Australian Taxation Office, and the Department of Education, Skills and Employment, as well as Telstra across Microsoft. Our Australian community partners, ARNet, Hackathons Australia, and Luma Institute. Our ACT sponsors, the ACT government. In New South Wales, we have the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment, SME Tech Solutions, and X15 Ventures. Our Queensland sponsors, the Queensland Government, Moreton Bay Regional Council, Split Spaces, and NHub. We have in SA, we have the City of Playford, Stone and Chalk, Torrens University Australia, the Adelaide University Entrepreneurs Club, Founders Institute, and Moonshot. In Tasmania, we have the University of Tasmania and WATSO. In Victoria, we have Melbourne Water and the Department of Premier and Cabinet. And then lastly, for our sponsors, we have those in WA, where we have the City of Fremantle, 221, Breakthrough WA, and the City of Albany. So thank you very much to all our sponsors that help to support GovHack year in and year out. People ask, what is GovHack? So I have a short little video that we'll show now that says a little bit about what GovHack is. So I'll just get that playing now. Okay, so that was a little video around what is GovHack, and we'll go through and explain a little bit more about what it is all about now. So in GovHack, we are a not-for-profit that has a mission to use open government data to make our communities a better place. We are not people that are trying to break into the government data. the hack terminology that we're looking at is looking at a way for a quick but inelegant solution to any particular problem, or ways to program computers in interesting and clever manners. So we're trying to come up with a interesting concept of how we can use our open government data to make something interesting in a relatively quick period of time. For this, we have some values that we abide by. We're inclusive and free for all, so anyone is able to participate no matter what, if they're in Australia and New Zealand. We have a hackers first mentality, so we make sure that what we're doing is able to address the hackers, the participants first and foremost. We're trying to drive out into all of our regional areas across Australia and New Zealand so that anyone is able to compete, and we are a volunteer-driven organisation. We try to be transparent as wherever we can and provide open access to materials and believe in fair data approaches. So GovHack is a festival of ideas where we use open government data to make our communities a better place. For this, we run a hackathon that takes place over 46 hours. This year, this will be taking place on the 20th to the 22nd of August in cities, countries, and towns all across Australia and New Zealand. In this, teams will be mashing up and creating visualizations of new and engaging ways to make use of the government data provided to us. For this, we've seen many different projects over the years that we have been running this. GovHack has been running since 2009, and we're making great use of the data. Some of these projects can be computer applications, websites, mobile applications, or even in some years we've had musical songs, we've had board games, we've even had some maker style projects where people have developed a topographical map of areas using 3D printers, CNC machines, and laser cutters. So there's a wide different variety of projects that people can develop, and we'll point you to a place later in this talk where you can go and have a look at some of these projects yourself. So who can participate in GovHack? We encourage anyone and everyone to participate in GovHack. We do not restrict it to anyone. Typically, we find that we get a strong demographic from our students, with this typically being tertiary students. But we do encourage any secondary and primary students to participate as well. We strongly encourage anyone in the public sector to participate, to make use of the open data that you're working so digitally to provide. Anyone in the tech industry can come and make use of this, data lovers. But these are not all. We love people that are creatives, that are domain experts, anyone with shared life experiences. So anyone is able to participate in this from all ages and skill levels. Our youngest competitor ever a few years ago was a young child around the age of 4 participating in Logan in Queensland. He had a team with an older sibling and a parent, and they participated. The team went on to be the runners-up of the youth prize for that year, narrowly beat out by a young group of school kids from South Australia. We have locations all around in major cities and regional towns, and where we don't have these, we have digital events where people can participate. The exact locations are available on the hackerspace for registrations, but Liv will point them out shortly later. these are the locations that we have previously been in. So we've had events in all of these locations across Australia and New Zealand as physical events in previous years. Last year, as a result of swapping to digital-only delivery, and along with some digital fatigue, we did have a slightly reduced participant numbers, but we're hoping this will grow with the opening of some physical locations where it's safe to do so around Australia and New Zealand, returning to numbers that we saw in 2019. We have a very large Slack community, which you'll be able to join and participate. And we have a very large following on social media where we get out our messages to each of you around what the different projects are and how we can influence and make our communities better places. So from this, there are a number of different benefits that you can get out of participating in GovHack. It does by participating, you can build your digital and entrepreneurial skills and experiences. So as you're developing your projects, you will create videos to showcase what your project is. And this can become a great asset in your portfolio. And it could even have the sponsors, that could be government or private entities, reaching out to you to either pick up you as on a career opportunity or looking to purchase the ideas that you have developed. We look at increasing awareness around the public data sets. Governments work very tirelessly to release numbers of different open data sets, and we want to make sure that these data sets get used so that further ones can be developed and released for this. We showcase how data delivery approaches can address current challenges. So we have a number of different challenges that are put forward by our sponsoring entities, and these challenges are driven by data, and we want to see how people can approach these to come up with new and interesting ideas of ways that these could potentially be addressed or solved. You can grow your networks so that we have students, employees, industry, and government all competing in this. So you can look at ways of creating better links between people for this. And lastly, as I said before, this provides a great way for students looking at future career opportunities with a number of different of our sponsors are very interested at recruiting new talent across Australia and New Zealand. So we encourage everyone to get involved in this. So to explain a little bit more about what open government data is and the power of it, I'm going to hand it over to Bernadette Highland-Wood, who is the Queensland Regional Lead. We have a pre-recorded video from her where she can explain around what this open government data is and just how useful it can be. So I'm going to get that video started now.
Some say that we're living in unprecedented times. We're reading about the effects of global warming, variants of COVID-19, massive economic crisis, and looming social unrest. When we ask our family, neighbors, and colleagues, how's it going, beyond perfunctory answers of I'm managing, we sometimes sense deeper concerns, anxiety, being overwhelmed, or perhaps feeling isolated. Some of us are wondering, what can we do? Acts of cooperation and a culture of sharing can change the trajectory of human history. For example, 2 centuries ago, astronomer and cartographer Matthew Fontaine Maury had a radical idea. He challenged conventions in an era when maps were considered state secrets. He changed the world by creating a system to share data, and it transformed international commerce forever. Maury encouraged ship's captains to record their observations of seasonal winds and currents, and in exchange for the captain's contributions, he created charts and shared them. Within several years, he had created virtuous circles of oceanographic data sharing that included 3/4 of the world involved in commerce. These radical acts of cooperation revolutionized sea travel. A century and a half later, what Maury did for global trade, Sir Tim Berners-Lee did with the invention of the World Wide Web. Berners-Lee devised a software platform that helped scientists from different cultures to work together, regardless of location. Their shared interests in science and a desire to see a huge project succeed gave birth to a universal information sharing platform, the web. Access to the internet and the web changed everything. They became catalysts for a renaissance in sharing digital information. In the space of about a decade, a global community collaborated to define open licenses and literally thousands of open source projects and hundreds of thousands of open data sets, many published by governments. This confluence of open technologies is a world history event as profound and more pervasive than the introduction of the printing press by Johannes Gutenberg in the 15th century. Maury and Berners-Lee, separated by nearly 2 centuries, created systems that disrupted the flow of information at scale. And they did so by catalyzing a culture of data sharing and cooperation among people with common interests. The web's pioneers hoped that it would level the playing field through worldwide access to information. They hoped it would be democratizing. And while some argue that inequity has not diminished but merely shifted, nevertheless, more than 30 years after the invention of the web, virtuous circles continue to emerge through acts of cooperation and data sharing. Open government data is non-sensitive, non-personally identifiable data published on a public website. NGOs, businesses, researchers, and governments all depend on vast open government data supply. For example, Australian farmers use GPS location data published by the US government and open weather data from the Japanese government to support precision agriculture. More than 3.8 billion people use some form of open government data for daily tasks, including using ATMs, FPOS, and navigation services worldwide. Open government data is worth hundreds of billions of dollars to the global economy. Now, of course, different countries have different approaches to governing and administrating their open data practices. For example, Australia and New Zealand committed to openness and transparency more than a decade ago. And like many democracies, each of these governments declared a commitment to open data based on a culture of engagement, access to non-sensitive information, and the use of innovative technologies. Some open data is used to address the world's most pressing issues, such as monitoring disease outbreaks. Public health officials track the coronavirus cases to make decisions on personal movement, reopenings, and travel. Open data serve as the scientific equivalent of the free press. It's a foundational building block for participatory democracy. However, despite the sheer volume of data that governments collect, it is sometimes not shared well. Sometimes it's ad hoc. Some open data lacks legal provisions which limit its reuse. And some programs lack institutional support, thereby jeopardizing open data supply. Health experts argue this pandemic has revealed how fragile and brittle the global data sharing ecosystem is. So this is where you and I come in. Using our collective curiosity and ingenuity and usable open data, it's up to us, students, researchers, and entrepreneurs. Change happens when civil society, often working across geographic boundaries, works together. Governments better understand what data is useful to address pressing problems, and that helps them to improve data availability and supply. Through communities of practice and hackathons that promote a festival of ideas, we are creating the future. A future based on diversity, inclusion, and privacy-preserving technologies. Having worked for more than 15 years with national libraries, environmental regulators, and scientific communities seeking to share open data, I've seen firsthand how sustained acts of cooperation have addressed some of humanity's greatest challenges. Cooperation has led to robust data standards. It's led to FAIR principles. It led to connecting data from public health surveillance systems, diagnostic systems, and clinical research to support the Ebola response in Africa, swine flu in Mexico, and malaria eradication efforts in sub-Saharan Africa. and it will lead to better solutions for COVID-19, disaster preparedness, and environmental protection here in Australia and New Zealand. But it depends on strengthening our data sharing capacities. By connecting and transforming our passion, our expertise, and open government data, together we'll address public health and climate crises. Working with open data stakeholders, we can unleash the potential of accurate, timely data to address challenges that individually we could not hope to tackle. I research the barriers and facilitators of open government data sharing, and my research shows that we all have a role to play. Governments are working to increase their operational capabilities to ethically collect, use, and share data while protecting our privacy. Data stewards in public service and civil society are working to unlock accurate, timely data that's fair. Together, we're collaborating to solve complex global problems. If the scientific sprint during this pandemic has taught us anything, it's that we must work together. The best things in life are done in collaboration with others and are guided by principles of transparency and inclusion. So join us to empower, enable, and connect, and tackle the challenges facing our communities and our planet. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Bernadette, for that insightful talk about the powers of open government data and just how it can be used and what it is. So I'm now going to hand over to Liv to go through where to GovHack, how to GovHack, and what you can do to get prepared. So over to you, Liv.
Thanks, Jason. So as you can see from this slide, GovHack runs in every state and territory. So this year we've got digital events for every region, and then where we can, kind of pending latest COVID restrictions, we've also got physical events as well. And so from here you can see we've got them in ACT, Queensland, South Australia, Tasmania, as well as WA. And then we've also got 4 physical events in New Zealand. So as a competitor, you can compete in any location, and you can also form teams across multiple locations as well. So for example, if you're from Sydney and you're maybe a developer, you might want to find like a UX person or a business person in South Australia or Tasmania. That's perfectly acceptable. The one thing that you will need to do is that you need to specify one location to be the team's location. And so the reason for this is that each of the projects have prizes, and some of the prizes are only for eligible states. So some may say this prize or this challenge is for New South Wales only. And so in order for us to determine, is this team eligible for this New South Wales only prize, you do need to state which state or territory is this whole team part of. So for regions such as New South Wales, if you go onto Hackerspace now and try to register, you might notice that it's got both a New South Wales and a Sydney event, which is slightly confusing. But the reason why this happened was because Sydney was a physical location before and New South Wales was digital, but because of the recent lockdown rules, they're both digital now. You can sign up for any at the moment and it'll be the same event. Yeah. Cool. All right, so you can join GovHack as a team if you've already got one, but if you do need a team, what you can do is you can jump onto Slack. And so Slack is our main channel for announcements. And this is also where you can find a team as well. You can also speak to mentors during the competition, but Slack is kind of the place to be. So if you haven't already, we want you to jump onto Slack HQ. And so if you're a returning participant, you can log in. If not, you can sign up at this link that we've got up here, which is govhack.org/Slack. Alrighty, so if you're wondering how you can prepare between now and the competition, one of the first things that we'll get you to do is create a profile and then start looking for your team. And so what you can see on the screen right now is a screenshot of Hackerspace. And so this is where you go on, you can create your profile, and it's also where you're going to find the challenges and where you're going to submit your projects during the weekend as well. So there you've got a list of profiles, and if you click through them, you can see the status. So on your status, you can say, I'm looking for a team, I've already got a team, or I'm looking to create a new one. And you can also contact them if you click their profile and then click chat on Slack. So if we go on to the next slide, I'll show you what we mean. So during team formation, as mentioned, get onto Slack, get your profile published, and then, use this as an opportunity to get your friends and colleagues involved as well. And then if you're able to go to a physical event, you can also form a team there. So it's not vital that you do it before the competition, but you can start now if you'd like to. So another activity you can do on Hackerspace right now is what we call the treasure hunt. And so this is just a fun little activity that gets you to explore data sets. If you answer all questions correctly, you do earn a badge, and then your badge appears on your profile that says, treasure hunt solved. So on the next slide, we've got the data portals. And so here you can find resources that you'll use for the competition. So if you want, you can log in, now and click through. And I think on the next slide, we've got a bit of a screenshot of what it's going to look like. So if you click into data portal, for example, you're going to see the national, state, territory, and local council portals. And so on here, you can actually search in one place and get access to all the different data sets that your national, state, territory, or local council will have. So if you want to have a look at what projects were submitted last year, what you can do is you can jump onto 2020.hackerspace.govhack.org. And so you can see what were the challenges last year, what's the style that they're written in. And then you can also have a look at all the projects that were published or submitted for each challenge. And you can also browse through the winners as well and just see, what did it take for someone to win. And so here we've got an example where we've clicked into an actual project. And this is what you will be asked to do as well for this year. So you'll need to submit, who's in your team, what's the name of the project, a little description about how your project meets the challenge, as well as a video that you're going to film, and then a link to your actual project as well. And so, one thing I'll reiterate what Jason said, your project doesn't need to be working code. You can submit wireframes, you can submit SketchUps, you can submit a concept. It can be, 3D printed thing. It can be an art project. It can be anything. And then, you can take photos of it, capture it, and then this is where you are submitting all of that information. So for the competition weekend, whether you're going to participate digitally or physically, make sure you're registered on Hackerspace. And then when you do this, you do get a chance to say, are you a hacker? Are you a youth hacker, a mentor, a sponsor, or if you're a crew or a volunteer? If you're going to be in person, you'll get a badge, and this is where that information goes. And then for digital participants, as well as physical ones, if you go to your profile on Hackerspace, this information is also going to appear on your profile. All right, so let's run through the competition weekend. We always start on the Friday evening. And so one thing I'll point out is these times are in Australian Eastern Standard Time. So this is Sydney, Melbourne, Queensland time. I think Queensland. Hopefully you guys aren't under daylight savings right now, but Sydney, Victoria time. And so at 6 p.m, this is usually when physical venues start. Some regions do have a different time, so just double check on Hackerspace when that is. But that's normally followed at 6:30 with the Australian national live stream. And so whether you're digital or physical, this is what you're going to tune into. And this will welcome everyone and then give a bit of an outline on the challenges. So at 7 p.m. is when the competition starts. And so what that means is right now, if you go to Hackerspace, you cannot see any of the challenges just yet. But at 7 p.m. on the Friday, that's when they're made visible. And you'll be able to scroll through, see all the challenges and see which ones you're eligible for. This is also kind of where we expect some more team forming might happen. So if you don't have a team already, don't worry. even if the competition's already started, you can still keep forming teams. And we always see Slack being really busy at this time, so jump on. Saturday morning at 10 a.m, we'll have a mentor morning tea. So once again, jump onto Slack where we'll put announcements of how to get into the ones that you're interested in. And then at 12 p.m, this is when we recommend that you lock in a challenge. So we want to make sure that you leave yourself enough time to really, flesh out, build out your project. And so by 12 o'clock, if you've got a lot of ideas, this is when you should be consolidating them and just choosing, which challenge or challenges do we want to target and what's our idea. At 7 p.m. on the Saturday, we've just got a bit of a fun trivia night activity. And so this is something for the whole of Australia and New Zealand to get involved in. And this is individual trivia. We'll post an announcement on how to get the link again in Slack on the night. And for this one, if you place in the top 20, you do get a badge for your profile as well. It's a lot of fun. So I do encourage you to, take a little bit of time out of your hacking to participate in this one. All righty. So on the Sunday, by around 12 o'clock, we recommend that you at least start getting your video underway, because that is one of the main things that the judges look at. And then at 4 o'clock, we're hoping that participants can get their videos and projects uploaded. And this will kind of give you enough time if something goes wrong to maybe resubmit, or if your internet's a bit slow, just so that you're not panicking at the last minute trying to click upload. 5 p.m. is the submission deadline, and we expect kind of all projects to be and videos to be uploaded by that time. Alrighty, so if you have been following GovHack before, you'll know that every year we've got competition themes, and this will give you a clue as to what the challenges might be about. We've got 4 main ones this year, and so the first one that we've got is energy and infrastructure. So expect challenges around, renewable energy, just energy in general, transport, communication. And so when we think about transport, not only are we talking about kind of like normal everyday commuters, but also how do we transport food, from a farm to a city? How do we transport goods from overseas to Australia as well? So think broad for that one. Second thing that we've got is agriculture and the environment. So we're talking about digital agri-futures, which is how do we continue innovating agriculture so that, yields are high. We're using technology in farming as well. Caring for our country. So think about things about sustainability. And the last one, waterways to oceans, everything to do with water. So the third thing that we've got for this year is our digital future. So we're thinking about skills for tomorrow. So how do we predict what skills are going to be in shortage? How do we deal with that now? Jobs and employment, and then digital services as well. So in the midst of kind of this COVID pandemic, maybe this is one that everyone can kind of relate to, because we can't do a lot of things physically. What are the things that we're going to have to do digitally now, and how do we optimize and make these really efficient? And the last thing that we've got is health and well-being. So expect challenges that will ask you to create solutions around aged care, disability, and mental health, as well as emergency response and vaccine rollout as well, which is very topical. So after GovHack competition weekend, we will have a period of judging, and then after that we'll announce the winners. And so we'll contact you afterwards about any awards events that we run, and we will run them. We're just pending, the COVID restrictions to see how we do this safely. And then on your profile as well, if you do win, you will get a badge as well to show that, but more information will come on this. All right. So now I'd like to introduce Jenny Smith. So Jenny is a manager, analytics manager in data collaboration for Data WA and Capture WA. Thanks.
policy, providing technical assistance, and also implementing what is needed to help the discovery of this public sector data. We also coordinate the data acquisition for the West Australian government or cross-government through the Capture WA program. So much of what we do relies on these stakeholder relationships and, of course, the public sector network in WA and also across Australia. So since the creation of the Data WA portal in 2015, and that's when the WA Open Data Policy started, the number of data sets has grown to about 2,400. At present, we have more than 2,000 open discoverable data on Data WA. Most of the data is spatial or location-based, and as you can see on this slide, the little green lock with a tick on it shows that the data is actually accessible and it's open. Those, of course, it's not open to everybody is in a red or an orange color. So the data themes cover a broad spectrum from transport to infrastructure, environment to community services, and of course education, and there is a few others. Data formats also, these include APIs, web and feature mapping services. Some of you might know it as WFS and WMS. We have CSV files, GeoJSON, map packages, JPEGs, and there's many more formats. So our focus is on data discoverability and access to useful data. So it's not about having a single portal housing a large amount of data. So the portal, the Data WA portal, has a collection of data sets and also connections to other data, which is hosted on other sites. And this helps with the discovery of the data, since the connection is as important as the collection of data. So the portal includes a progress dashboard that tracks how we're doing regarding the open data policy implementation. It has a community forum and a blog page. It's got public sector pages for data collaboration programs, and also a dedicated page for the shared location information platform. We call it SLIP, and that's where all the spatial data and web map services are for Western Australia government agencies. So the key component of the Data WA portal, which will be of interest to you, is of course the data catalogue, the access levels and license type. When you scroll through the catalogue, you'll see it on the left-hand side. And you can also do a search on by location. The map icon is there as well. So to note, under the Applications tab, you'll find links to other data portals and also map applications that's already got data in it if you just want to view. Or alternatively, you can go directly to the GovHack group, which has specifically been set up for this event. So in the GovHack group, you will find a broad range of open data from a variety of government agencies, from West Australian government agencies. There's a help section, links to help areas that's specifically for Gov hackers new to spatial information and mapping, and also some additional links to other government data. So as I mentioned, the spatial data can be viewed in the public map applications, which you'll find in the Applications tab, or some of you might be familiar with a national map. It's quite easy to drag and drop the data in there if you just want to view. Do note that to download data, which I guess most of you probably like to do, you would need to sign up for a login. You need to register. And the instructions and the link to this registration page is in that little help section. So it's probably best that you have a look at that and register before the weekend to make sure that your access is okay. It is free, it is open, it's just that you need to register to download the data. If you do have any issues, just contact the info@data, it's on the website, and my team's ready to help whatever is needed, so they know to check the inbox if anything comes through. Then if you do need help before the GovHack weekend, as I said, you can email the info@data. Our team will be on standby for you, but do note that the team is not working over the weekend, I will be contactable throughout the weekend, and I'll check in with the experts if I can't help you. I'll be on Slack. So if there's anything, just let me know, let the team know, and wishing you all the best and have fun. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jenny. Okay. Yep. Thank you very much, Jenny, for that look into the data portals for WA. Now I'm going to have a look over into Queensland. Originally, we were going to be having the Queensland Connections event last night. However, due to local lockdowns, that wasn't able to go ahead. So the Queensland government would like to pass along the message that they have supported GovHack from 2013 through to, and again, doing it within this year. The Open Data Office within the Department of Community Housing and Digital Economy is developing 4 different challenges for Queensland participants to solve. And you can access these on the hackerspace once they launch. They are looking into projects that are around the original and feasibility of it, looking for a good mix of the technical data use, business analysis, and communication and presentation. These are a lot of the different criteria that we look as well when we're looking at these challenges from GovHack's perspective. The challenges that they provide must use the data on the Queensland Open Data Portal, which is accessed at data.qld.gov.au. And you can also go and have a look at some of the challenges from last year on the Queensland Data Portal that they thought were really intuitive and interesting solutions. So Queensland government would like to say have fun and good luck hacking for this. So that brings us to the end of the main parts of the presentation for this this evening. However, we would like you, if you have any questions or comments or want to discuss ideas about what you could potentially do, we welcome you to jump on to a current Zoom call that is going on by heading to govhack.org/2021 AUS. And we can answer any questions that you may have. If you get prompted for a password, the password is 866-406. So we look forward to having a chat with you in the next couple of minutes before we close out at 6 p.m. this evening. So thank you very much once again for joining us. Good luck and have fun as a part of the competition this year.